Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
As we have seen, Hillary out there getting attacked. In the beginning, I predicted she'd be attacked 24/7. She's been attacked 25/7. She withstood it. As she said in the debate, I'm still here. We're approaching the time that we're going to be celebrating 100 years that women got the right to vote, 2020. Imagine having a woman in the White House now.
Isn't that a wonderful thought? As long as she's a woman, even if it's Evita Peron, or pick any other woman you want, any dictator, as long as she's a woman. Is there a woman listening to this program who doesn't understand the sexism of that hag from Marin County, Barbara Boxer, one of the worst people in the history of the United States government, a woman who's been a plague, a virtual plague upon the American people for 40 years now, along with her co-sister there, Dianne Feinstein, another prize. They're both very, they're so pure and they're so much cleaner, politically that is, than men, that it would really be great to have a woman as president. But let's put that aside. It's just a little opener for you. The big topic is, everyone has it half right. Biden won't run. Are you sure? See, everyone's saying Biden announces he won't run. That's the lemmings are running. Biden won't run. Biden won't run. Every news, Fox, CNN, Biden won't run. No Joe. No Joe. Biden won't run. Won't run. Won't run. And what do you have to say, Jake Woodpecker? Well, I heard today that Biden won't run. And what do you say, Wolf? Well, we were told today that Biden won't run. And Anderson, what do you say? Well, we were told that Joe Biden won't run. And what do you have to say, Bill O'Reilly? Well, we can say killing old Joe Biden or something. Maybe there's a book in it. I don't know. Everyone says Biden won't run. Well, they have it half right. I have a different opinion. Nothing that this gang does is by chance. Biden was sent out there today to reintroduce himself to the public as an all-around trustworthy guy. The evil Democrat machine put him in the dugout and in the spotlight today in case Hillary gets destroyed either by the Benghazi hearing or another one of her numerous scandals. They're just putting him up in the dugout, getting him ready to warm up in case she falls. Period. End of story. That's one man's opinion. Welcome to the program. Phone number is 855-400-7282. Here's topic number 2. Yesterday, out of the blue, I introduced a topic which proves to me that I'm the most prophetic individual in talk radio, and there's nobody more far-seeing than Michael Savage in radio today or ever. I did this yesterday on pure intuition. I don't know if you remember the piece. I talked about Hitler's mufti. Do you remember that out of nowhere? I don't know why I did it. I talked about how the Palestinian mufti, Amin al-Husseini, worked with Hitler in the 1920s with the formation of the Muslim Brotherhood to exterminate the Jews. That al-Husseini actually took the plans for gas chambers from Germany and wanted to build them in the Middle East to exterminate all the Jews before Israel even existed. I wake up today and I hear that Netanyahu makes similar comments for which he is being attacked. Netanyahu says the Palestinian leader, the very same leader I mentioned, this vicious, psychotic, genocidal maniac, Haj Amin al-Husseini, Netanyahu says he gave Hitler the idea for the Holocaust. Now, I don't know who gave who the idea. I would say that al-Husseini was on par with Hitler. He was the Arab Hitler. Let's put it to you that way. It doesn't really matter. But immediately upon saying that, Netanyahu is attacked by saying that the former Muslim Brotherhood psychotic convinced Adolf Hitler to exterminate the Jews. Isn't it interesting that on yesterday's program, I talked about the very same al-Husseini who, historically, it's true, wanted to build gas chambers in the Middle East to exterminate all the Jews before Israel even existed. Netanyahu's comments are 100% correct. It doesn't matter whether al-Husseini gave Hitler the idea to exterminate the Jews or Hitler gave al-Husseini the idea. They're in the same exact league. They wanted to exterminate the Jews even before Hitler was around. Listen to my tape from yesterday, which you're going to hear today, and you'll understand why this show is breaking all records on many fronts. I was ahead of the entire media world on this. Now, what does that tell you? It tells you anything you want it to tell you. So I'll let you decide what it tells you. I'm not going to tell you what it tells you. Those are two topics I want to talk about today. But I'm not going to do that at the beginning of the show. I'm going to do it as the show evolves. CNN says Biden won't run. What geniuses. After Biden announces he won't run. Now, that's really breaking news. No analysis, just Biden won't run. That's not the news. The news is an analysis of why they even put him out there. What they put him out there for if he won't run? He could have put out a press release saying, I'm not going to run. Use your heads, idiots. Take a look at the puppet master to his right. Take a look at Hussein Obama to his right. Looking on like the long-suffering president, the poor oppressed minority president who has suffered at the hands of the evil Republicans and the evil people of America. Poor old suffering Obama. And there's old Jill looking on, the loyal wife looking on. I don't know what it would be like to be a wife, I'll tell you the truth. I thank God I was born a man. That's all I could say. I don't know how it is to be an intelligent woman in this world, to have to pretend that you're looking up to a moron like him. All our life, she looked up to him for everything. He's such a genius, Joe Biden, that there's old Jill Biden staring at the God himself, Joe Biden. Can you imagine getting up every day and having to look at that guy, seeing him put his dentures in? It's unbelievable to me. But nevertheless, these are just the foibles of humanity that we all look at and just chuckle over. But the news is very serious, obviously, and I know you don't want to hear it. And if you did want to hear it, you don't need talk radio for the news, do you? Why, you can get it from reliable sources like the Old York Times or any of the other scandal sheets that are out there. So we do the best we can in talk radio. We give you some news and some commentary, analysis, humor, whatever we want to do. And many people seem to enjoy it and turn to us. Of course, in my show, I have a central theme. My theme is borders, language, and culture, which apparently is now criminal. According to the long-suffering president, borders are something antiquated. Language? You mean English? You must be joking. Culture? You mean a culture based upon Judeo-Christian values? No, not to al-Husseini in the White House. Why, just yesterday we read that the high school football player or middle school football player ran 73 yards for a touchdown, a Hispanic kid. And after he got into the end zone, he raised one finger to thank God. He pointed to heaven. And guess what happened? They penalized him 15 yards. They penalized the kid 15 yards for pointing to heaven, thanking God for having given him whatever it is that God gave him to run that touchdown. This is how far this country has fallen under Hussein Obama, where Christians are being oppressed on a daily basis. Oh, I'm not saying Obama put out a directive, don't get me wrong, but they know which way the wind blows. The people in this country are following the leader. This leader is extremely powerful, make no mistake about it. He has one of the most powerful wills I've seen in my lifetime. That's right, the poor oppressed president has one of the strongest wills I've ever seen. He is a raging psychopath along the lines of all other dangerous, very dangerous leaders. And speaking of dangerous leaders, we look at Germany, we look at America, we look at the rush to bring in Syrian Muslims, Bosnian Muslims. No one knows where they're really coming from. 90% of them are men without women and children. Of course, now the news is modifying that to show you only pictures of men, women, and children, but we all know it's 85 to 90% single men of military age being rushed into Europe. And then I thought about Merkel. I thought about her, and a vision came to me. And here's the vision. Hitler invaded other countries to take their territory, to dominate other countries with Germanic people and with the crazed mentality of the Nazi philosophy. Merkel is invading her own country. Has anyone ever said that? Think about what I just said to you. They say that they are not fascists, but they are fascists. But instead of invading other countries, they're invading their own country. Obama is doing the exact same thing. Obama is invading his own country. First with illegal aliens from Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and China. He's invading his own country. He's making his own people stand down. He's making the local police stand down. He's making the Border Patrol stand down. So it doesn't matter which way the which way the psychopaths operate, it's still psychopathic behavior. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? No, I guess not. You didn't read it in the morning newspaper, along with a picture of some slut from Hollywood slipping on a banana peel on Sunset Boulevard, so I guess it doesn't resonate with you. It's not talking about the Founding Fathers, I guess, so it's not resonating with you. I'll say it again, though, until you finally get it. Hitler was a certifiable psychopath. Everybody knows that. That's a given. And what did he do? He expanded his nation. He invaded other countries. What does Merkel do? What is Obama doing? And what does Obama want to do? That is equally insane to that of Hitler, but in the reverse. He invades his own country with foreigners who are not even citizens. He wipes away the laws of his own land. He permits illegal aliens to vote. If that's not psychopathic behavior, tell me what is. It's all contained in Government Zero. No borders, no language, no culture. The most insightful book of our generation. And I will say so myself, because you're not going to hear about it on Fox News or anywhere else. Now, that's the opening to my show. If you care to join the program before I get back to all the news of the day, the phone number is... I forgot the phone number. I think it's 855-400-SAVAGE. That's the number. 855-400-7282. I got an email from someone this morning who's far smarter than I am. Not easy for me to say that because I believe in myself. I have tremendous belief in myself. I work very hard to believe in that. But I know some few people who are smarter than me, particularly one. And he looks ahead. He's more far-seeing than I am. And he said to me, it's over. He said what Merkel is doing to Germany, what the weakling is doing to England, what the socialist is doing to France, what Obama the psychopath is doing to America, will render this country non-existent in less than 50 years. And I said to him, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. But the fact of the matter is the world is changing in ways you can never imagine. And think more particularly about what I said to you, in case you missed it. Hitler was a psychopath. No one on earth would disagree with that except Nazis who still exist. What did Hitler do? He invaded other countries to impose his nation's, let us say, distorted values and race upon other countries. That's a given. What is Obama doing? He's invading his own country with people of other races and other cultures and other languages to wipe away the predominant language, the predominant culture of his own nation. He is equally mad to Barack. Obama is as equally as mad as Adolf Hitler in that regard. Write it down. Maybe it'll make it to CNN. Talk show host says Obama as crazy as Hitler because he's invading his own country with foreigners. But they better get the whole quote correct. And I don't know if they're capable of it. What Merkel is doing is invading Germany with foreigners. She's invading her own nation. Has anybody on earth seen this the way I do? No. And that's why I'm here today. I'm here today for a reason. The reason is to try to awaken you. I know it's very late in the cycle. I've realized it's extremely late in the process. I realize that many of us have been sounding the clarion call for years. Not just me alone, many of us. But we've lost the battle. You don't understand this. We have lost the battle. And all you could do now is prepare for the tsunami of foreigners, of illegal aliens, of those opposed to Christianity and Judaism, that the psychopaths who are ruining America are rushing across the borders as quickly as they can to make certain that the white male in particular no longer has a voice in his own nation. I will stand by those words. I swear on them on a stack of Bibles. I'm Michael Savage. Enjoying the music? Well, you can. It'll soon be illegal in America in your lifetime. It'll be too joyful. It'll be an insult to the prophet. See, there's only one prophet, you understand, when you say the prophet. No other religion's allowed to have a prophet. There's only one. True, the most dominating religion on the planet. The only one that can't get along with any other religion on the planet. There's only one. Christianity was built upon the premise of turn the other cheek, love thy neighbor as thyself, and it conquered 1 billion people on the earth through a message of love. The other religion conquered through the sword, through the flame, through torture, through rape, through murder, and through pillage. It's a fact of reality. Study history. Don't tell me you read it in the Daily News and you disagree with me. Now, you look at Canada. You had a crackpot prime minister years ago, Pierre Trudeau, who was nothing more than a liberal playboy. He was a laughingstock. He destroyed the economy of Canada while he ran around doing as many women as he could. Basically, that was Trudeau's legacy. Drug, sex, rock and roll, and ruining the economy with high taxation and regulation. Now he has an idiot son, a good-looking idiot son, who has good abs, and because of the good abs and the tattoo, the morons in Canada elected him. Now, of course, if you study it, it wasn't the morons in Canada who elected Trudeau. It was the Muslims who had been brought in to Toronto who swung the election in favor of Trudeau, the idiot. Trudeau the Quisling, as idiotic as he is a power-mad idiot, much along the lines of all the liberals in the West, who will do anything. They'll burn their own nation to the ground to hold on to power. Take a look at Germany. Merkel will burn Germany to the ground rather than let go of the reins of power. So instead of listening to the people, the majority of whom say enough is enough, we can't take it, you're destroying our borders, language, and culture in Germany, what does Merkel do? She says, drop dead, I'll do what I want to do. She'll bring in any number of Muslims from Syria who will never integrate into Germany. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that, from the police to the priests to the teachers. Everybody knows that will never, ever be an assimilation in Germany, ever. So why is Merkel doing it? Why is Trudeau doing it? Why is Obama doing it? They're psychopaths. They would burn their own nations to the ground to hold on to power. Do you understand that there are people who are sick, who are running things? Do you get that there are people who are maniacs? I don't think you understand it, because this is something new to history. And I'll have to explain it in more detail right here on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282.
You can go your own way. Go your own way.
34 minutes after the hour of Savage Nation. I can't give you the traffic because I don't know what it is, nor do I care. I know that our borders are now in gridlock. I know that Obama's knocked down all the fences. Basically, he's given a green light to the third world to run over our nation. Barack Obama, Merkel, you name it, Trudeau in Canada now are committing a reversal of what Hitler did. Yeah, I'll bring up Hitler over and over again to attract your attention. They're just as equally psychopathic, but instead of invading other nations, they're invading their own nation. I'll keep repeating this theme today till you get it. Hitler was a psychopath, a madman. He brought his nation to ruin. What did he do? He invaded other nations to impose the Germanic Nazi view upon surrounding nations. Then he wanted to take over the world. What is Obama, Merkel, Trudeau doing? They're invading their own nation with the third world to annihilate their own nation's borders, language, and culture. They're equally psychopathic, and they're doing it for the same exact reasons, which is to hold on to power. Power über alles. You get it? Now, what are Western values post-Obama? Western civilization reached its apex in the United States of America, the freest, most prosperous, and most powerful nation in the history of the world. That civilization was built upon principles derived from English common law and tradition, Judeo-Christian morality, and the uniquely American principles of individualism and self-reliance. But what are Western values today? Shooting junk at night and taking a coffee enema in the morning? Sleeping with 15 people at night and doing an herbal bath cleansing routine the next day? Making sure you're vegan? Are those our values now? Is this why everyone is into detoxing? Because they know that their souls are polluted? Here we are 50 years after the 1960s, when we were told to eliminate all repression, to let it all hang out, that if it feels good, do it. Why don't we do it in the road? Can anyone really say that has worked out well? We hear a lot about how repressed American society was before the 1960s, but not much about how much more well-ordered and civilized it might have been. John Adams famously said that our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. He was right. There has always been a protection against any federal government-mandated religion in this country, as there should be. But religion or some equivalent moral set of principles is a responsibility that goes along with freedom. We can see the consequences of abandoning that responsibility all around us. Americans barely notice as a rogue president runs roughshod over the Constitution. takes over the healthcare system, floods the nation with illegal aliens, alienates our allies overseas. As long as the beer is flowing, football is available 3 nights a week, and porn is available 24/7, they'll stay fat, dumb, and happy. I mean, it'd be very hard-pressed to answer whether the United States is still a land of opportunity or a land of dependency. 1 in 8 Americans are receiving food stamp assistance. Over 1/3 of Americans have government-subsidized health insurance. We have 2 opposing forces fighting in the world right now for dominance. We have the extremely fanatical religious Muslim fanatics who interpret their religion from a 9th century point of view and are willing to kill for it. They'll kill boys for watching soccer, believing that watching soccer is the first step on a slippery slope to becoming transgendered. That is how insane these fanatics are. The West is exactly the opposite. It has no values left. The left destroyed the church. They've destroyed all semblance of religion and morality. They've destroyed the American principles of private property, free enterprise, self-reliance, and personal responsibility. They've replaced them with atheism, hedonism, dependency, and political correctness. Man in the West today has no soul. Pages 154 to 156 of the most seminal book of your generation, Government Zero. My last in the series. That's it. My last chance. Now, in the last segment, I said we've lost the battle. And people are calling like crazy, saying things such as, Richard on WBAP, go ahead. You're on the Savage Nation. Make your point, please.
God bless you, Michael. I don't believe that you've thrown up your hands. You're the best voice of what's going on.
Well, Richard, I think I should have clarified. Richard, you're right for calling me up on that statement. But notice what I said. I said we've lost the battle. Did I say we've lost the war?
Very good. We haven't lost the war.
Did I say we lost the war, but we lost this battle? And that is because the most brilliant political science commander in American history is running their war for them. With the most powerful will I've seen in my lifetime. A single-minded maniac, a psychopath in the White House, has destroyed virtually everything I just mentioned on this program. But we haven't lost the war. The war has just begun because 30 million to 40 million Americans have finally awakened to what the psychopath has done to this country, and they want to stop him from doing more. They want to stop him before it's too late. Am I wrong about that, or am I right about that?
You're right about that.
Well, we know that it's not Paul Lyon Ryan who's going to stop him. I named him that last night on my Facebook account, Paul Lyon Ryan. Isn't it astonishing that Harry Reid supports him, Barbara Boxer supports him, Barack Obama supports him, John Boehner supports him? What more do you need to know than what I told you when Ryan appeared on the stage? And by the way, I was the first one. Remember when they ushered him out of nowhere to run with Mitt, weak-willed Romney? Remember that? When Mitt Milquetoast Romney was running. Remember when they floated Paul Ryan, what I said? He's a nobody. He's a quisling. Watch out for him. I was the only one who saw right through Paul Ryan. Thanks for calling. Copy of Government Zero goes out to you. Why? Because I said we've lost the battle. But did I say we've lost the war? The answer is no. Because I have a program, a plan to save America. And I'm not going to read it to you now. But I have an entire chapter on saving a nation. And there's a chapter and there are points on how to save the nation. There is a plan. There's a battle plan in the book. It's not just fluff. It's not like most books that end with nothing other than a screed and a scream. I have a plan. I have a plan that begins. I'll start with a few of them. 40 Actions to Save America. And it runs from page 313 right to the end of the book. 40 Actions to Save America. I've given you the top 40 that come to my mind as most urgent in 2015-16. And I want you to note that not all of these actions have to do with the federal government. Some should be accomplished at the state or local levels. Some should be accomplished outside of any governments at all. There is much that we can do in the private sector with the choices we make and the power we have over those who want to influence those choices. We have tremendous power. 40 actions to save America. 1, start a nationalist party. I don't mean for 2016. Start a nationalist party. 2, close the borders completely for 7 years. 3, deport all illegal aliens in American prisons. Make sure that when you quote me, you add the American prisons. 4, repeal the anchor babies law. 5, make English the official language of the United States. 6, require government-issued ID to vote. 7, reintroduce civics classes to elementary and secondary schools. 8, restore to active duty all military officers purged by Obama. Offer them a generous bonus as an incentive to return. 9, restore physical standards in the military. 10, restructure military spending. 11, cut the rest of government significantly. 12, repair our relations with Russia. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm giving you 12 of the 40 points, 40 actions to save America. You can read the rest of them yourself by reading Government Zero. Actions, actions, actions speak louder than words, words, words. Can you name one Republican candidate who actually has 40 actions to save America? I don't know of any. Even Donald Trump, who I strongly support, I haven't heard 40 actions to save America. I'm sure I could write them for him. I'm sure his staff has already gotten a copy of my book. I hope so, because there's gold in there. There's enough gold in Government Zero for Mr. Trump to run right to the presidency with. And when he does win, we might just be able to convince the people around him to save the country by instituting those 40 actions to save America. We just might be able to do it. I don't know, though. I don't know what's going to happen. The problem is once somebody wins, they have to run a country. And to run a country, they have to hire people. And once they hire people, you don't know what you're going to get. You know, people are very deceptive to get a job. You get it? Look what we did when we put the Republicans in power during the last election. And I count myself as one of the most important influencers on getting the Republican power back. I remember when Stop the Coming Civil War came out, I went on the air exactly a year ago, and I begged you to vote. I said, most of you won't vote. You're diehard conservatives. You're fed up with the Republican Party. And I said, hold your noses and please go out and vote. It was a low turnout comparatively, but there was a very high turnout amongst conservatives. You don't know that. That's something that the boys on CNN haven't figured out yet. The conservative turnout in the last election was extremely high because of my book, Stop the Coming Civil War. And I said, after we put the Republicans back in power, we're going to lobby them to do what we want done. Well, we lobbied them and we got the opposite. They stabbed us in the back. The Quislings, Boehner, McConnell, etc. Ryan, put him in the pack. They stabbed us in the back. They cut the conservative heart out. So when Trump wins, there's no guarantee that he's going to appoint people who will actually act out what the people have been screaming for. We have no idea what might happen right now. So that's all I want to say from my point of view. And there's one other little, shall I say, technical note that I must mention on this beautiful day, on this great program right now, which is that on Amazon, my book is #1 in politics, social sciences. This is very interesting. Government Zero has been driven up to #1 in books under politics and social sciences. And yet Amazon is doing it to me again. If you actually click the politics and social sciences, they don't list my book. They don't show it. They make it #20. So the liberals inside Amazon are trying to undermine me again. Remember last year, I didn't have Amazon? Remember they were in a fight with my publisher? I didn't have Amazon? Well, this year I have Amazon to sell the book on? Well, they're doing it to me again. One of the little girls or little boys inside Amazon has delisted my book from the list of politics, even though it's #1 on the list. They made it #20 or buried it. Wait until you see what happens when it hits a high point on the New York Times list and they don't list it. This time I'm going to sue them. Oh, this time I'm not rolling over. This time I got 3 lawyers lined up. We'll bring a lawsuit so hard on Sulzberger's girls that they won't even know what hit their running shoes. That's all I want to say at this time. Let's take some callers, please. WABC calls from New York City. Abby, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Hi, I totally agree with you on a lot of things you're saying. However, it's more than just Obama. It's a white Congress that has allowed illegal immigration to take over this country. It's a shame to be a heterosexual. It's a shame to be a Christian. And I'm a black American woman. And we don't like all of this immigration either. No one's putting our voice...
Abby, I'm so glad you called because people say to me, where are the voices of the African Americans over Obama flooding America with Muslims from Syria? They are the ones who are going to be hurt the most by this. I don't understand it. How in the world can your people not see this?
I do see it, and we do see it, where our voices are not being heard. We are stifled. We're not giving radio time. We're not giving TV time. We are angry about this, too, because this negatively affects not only poor white Americans, but black Americans. Okay, it affects
I understand that. When you're going to bring in millions upon millions of destitute individuals, they have to be supported somehow, so that comes out of the existing social services. So who loses? In other words, the existing American poor lose. So how could the existing American poor, of whom there are an awful lot of African Americans in that group, why is there no voice screaming, wait a minute, stop it? We were here for 100 years, 150 years. Some people have been here for 400 years, by the way. I learned that when I was living on Long Island, when I met African Americans whose families have been there since the 1600s when the settlers arrived. People don't know that about African Americans, but that's another story. How could they be stepped over by this American president, I keep asking, and they keep asking me?
American values no longer exist. Black Americans are not the enemy of this country. We were brought here involuntarily, but now we are a part of this country, and there is this mass illegal immigration problem that is destroying the country.
Well, I'm not surprised that Al Sharpton hasn't stood up for his African-American brethren. I'm not surprised that the grifter Jesse Hyde Jackson hasn't said a word. You know who they are. They're self-important, self-aggrandizing, and selfish individuals who've done nothing for their race and done everything for their own selves. You know that.
100 years, 150.
Thank you for the call. Send the lady a government zero, but we're getting feedback because the radio's on. Okay, my friend. My friends, it's a crazy world out there when you wake up and you see that Jimmy Carter has said he has given bombing targets to Vladimir Putin in Syria. I said, what? Jimmy Carter, whose policies I would say are the worst in the history of the country till Obama came along, says that he gave to the Russian embassy bombing plans that the U.S. had for Syria. Now, first of all, if it's true, he committed sedition. That's number one, or treason. Now, unless Obama wanted him to do that, he should be indicted for treason. On the other hand, this is the first thing Jimmy Carter has ever done that I agree with. I'll be right back. Joe says no. Biden not to run, say the media. Well, they got it half right. Of course, they buy it hook, line, and sinker. They don't know what's going on. All they know how to do is clean up their act in the morning and put on a tie and shirt, and then be the parrots that they're made to be as the fifth column. But let's go back to the big business at hand here. Melinda on WMAL, we have 1 minute for you. Fire away.
Hi, Dr. Savage. It'll be very interesting to see how long the Israelis put up with what's going on in Syria, especially with the Russians coming in, ISIS taking over many parts of the country. And not only that, but just in the last few days, the problem in Jerusalem with between Mahmoud Abbas and Hamas, with the Palestinians. It'll just end, not to mention the horrific...
Well, I understand that you were with the U.S. Embassy in Syria, so you know a little bit more than the average caller. How does this end in your mind?
At some point, I think it's going to go nuclear, only because...
Wait. You suspect Israel will have to use a nuclear weapon on which country?
Well, probably on Syria, just because of what's going on. It is purely my...
Melinda, come on. Israel's not going to risk a war with Russia. I have the exact opposite viewpoint, and I'm going to explain why the Russian incursion into Syria is actually good for stability in the Middle East and good for Israel. Government Zero goes out to you. Stay on the line.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now. 855-400-SAVAGE. 855-400-7282. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Who is this? I don't even know. Don't you get excited? I don't know who it is. I don't know what he was on, but whatever. Doesn't match my brainwaves. Welcome to the Savage Nation, hour number 2. Today is Wednesday, which means tomorrow's Hillary Day. We're all looking forward to her slither out of the hearings. You know, it's already been set up for her to slither out. You know that, don't you? You know, it's a Soviet trial. You know, it's nothing. You know, it's been set up. You know, Paul Ryan and the others orchestrated the questions and the answers. She's going to slither out the same way she slithers in. But we'll watch it. I mean, it starts 7 in the morning, I guess, on the East Coast. No, 10 in the morning on the East Coast. When does it start tomorrow? In the morning. Hillary's probably getting ready now with a new pantsuit, another yoga class of some kind, maybe the snake. Maybe she's doing a yoga posture today called the snake, if there is such a thing. I'm not that into it. I mean, I know it's near Halloween, but I don't want to make obvious Halloween jokes. So at the end of the hour, if you've been listening for an hour, and it was a pretty good hour, I'd rank it as a B, B+. This Monday was an A triple plus. I was so burned out from it, I couldn't even sleep that night. Yesterday was an A+. Today is, it's so far a B+. Because I do A triple pluses every day. I'm dead in 2 weeks. And my doctor and my horoscope has warned me to slow down. It's weird that the doctor and the horoscope have all said you may be in Aries and you may be doing more than you have ever done in your life, but kind of cool it, or your health is going to suffer. So I've cut back. I've cut back on a few planned events in my life. There's no need for them. And as the hour came to a conclusion last hour, I made a statement, which is a woman called, who used to work at the embassy in Benghazi, and she says that what's going on over there in the Middle East with Russia, with ISIS, with this, with that, Israel's going to be backed into a corner and use a nuclear weapon on some area of Syria. And I said I disagree. And then I concluded by saying the Russian incursion, like I said, it's by no means a war. Make no mistake about it. That's not a war. This is far from a war for Russia. It's a Russian incursion, an air incursion. And the Russian incursion, an old phrase, by the way, from the age of Cambodia, if you remember, but I won't belabor you with that. I like to look forward rather than backwards. The Russian incursion is going to stabilize the Middle East, number one. And number two, it's actually going to be good for Israel rather than bad for Israel. Now, while it's true that Iran is fighting alongside Russia at this time, and Iran supports Hezbollah, the terrorist organization based in Lebanon. Lebanon collapsed. I explained that on Monday because they were so nice to admit the PLO in the 70s. It destroyed the Maronite Christian nation, which fell into ruin as a result of their niceness. You know, kindness is always rewarded in the very same way, which is with ruination. I'm an absolutist when it comes to things like this because I know the truth. But nevertheless, let's forget that for the minute. Russia. Let's stick to Russia, if you don't mind. It's me who got distracted, not you. My dog is lying here with a sliver of sunshine coming through the studio. I bought him a new toy, which he has ignored. So I brought it next to his nose and laid it next to him and took a picture and put it on Facebook during the break. He still didn't care, but at least it looks cute. You know what's weird about Facebook? Is that I've tried different things. I only started posting on it myself 2 weeks ago. The picture of my dog got more hits than anything in the world. Oh, my genius, brilliant book, chapters from Government Zero, statements, comments. The comedy gets big hits, and pictures of my dog Teddy get big hits. People want relief from it all, you know. And it teaches me a lesson. So he's sleeping peacefully on his big bed. The toy is laying there on the floor. He doesn't care about it. It's an indestructible dog toy because he tears everything to pieces. I was talking about Russia, something very important. So never forget that there's a large emigre Russian community, a Russian emigre community in Israel. You have to understand that, first of all. In order for you to understand what I'm about to say to you, you have to understand that Israel is not as homogeneous as it once was. Far from it. It's a very diverse nation, and the Russian emigre community is extremely powerful in Israel, with very deeply connected roots going all the way back to Russia. So what I'm saying to you is there's dramatic communication between Russian Israelis and Russian Russians. And it's not lost on Putin. Putin's very, very smart. He's not going to wipe out the Jewish state. No way in a million years is he going to wipe out the Jewish state. He's going to stabilize the Jewish state. He is going to play the role that the United States once played before we had not Metternich, but Quisling take over the presidency. See, we needed a Metternich when we got a Quisling. Barack Quisling Obama, but that's too obscure. So I believe it's good for the health of the Middle East. You need a strong country there to stabilize things, to knock some heads together, get things straightened out, get rid of the crazies, the ISIS crazies, kill them off, get rid of them, and rein everybody in and put it under control again. And the U.S. once played that role, but under the weakling, maniac, psychopath administration that we have, it's not happening anymore. We've lost our ability to do that. They're focused on important things like global warming. Now, that's John Kerry's biggest job now that he's ruined Israel and empowered Iran, the terrorist state. His big job now is global warming. Speaking of John Kerry, the lunatic, he had the nerve to say this morning that any politician who does not believe in the global warming thesis is not fit for office. This is a new twist on it. I'm surprised he hasn't called for their imprisonment in the enlightened liberal manner that others have expressed recently. Well, anyway, that's one topic. There are many others on the Savage Nation. If you care to comment on anything I said in the last hour, and some of the things are very powerful and worthy of continuing in this hour, the phone number, we have one open line, is 855-400-7282, the Savage Nation. The main thing I said last hour is that, of course, Joe, no, Joe. Biden won't run. Even Wolf Blitzer can see the headline. They all saw the headline. Biden says he won't run. And I said they had it half right. In my humble opinion, Biden was sent out there today to reintroduce himself to the public because he could have announced it with a press release saying, I'm not running. But why did they give him a 20-minute speech? To reintroduce him to the public, to let everyone see the nice white guy, the trustworthy old Joe Sixpack, the good white man and the good white wife. Why? Why would they have done that? Tell me why. Just in case Hillary goes down, whether by the Benghazi hearing or another scandal, they got somebody in the dugout. Don't you understand that? They don't want that crackpot, that foul-breathed crackpot nutcase from New York's Lower East Side come Burlington, Vermont. And I'm the first one to say it. I was glad to see that the actor James Woods listens to the show, because I've been saying it for 2 weeks. The only reason the only reason Bernie Sanders, I mix him up with Colonel Sanders, I don't know why. The only reason Bernie Sanders has been allowed to get as far as he's gotten is to make Hillary look more normal, less crazed. Do you understand that? Because if he was really a threat to her, he'd be eating a sushi bagel by now. They would have fed him a sushi bagel or a sushi knish. I can guarantee it. Or they put him on a run in Marcy Park for his health. So no, Sanders is not getting anywhere. So who's left? The only Democrat that was worthy of the name of the presidency they made him into a laughingstock, an actual war hero. Jim Webb, the guy was a beautiful, proud American. They rendered him useless. They so hate this country. They so hate the military. They so hate the cop. They so hate the white male that they turned this red-blooded American hero, Jim Webb, into a laughingstock. That's your Democrat, socialist, Islamist machine of today. So he's not a threat. So who's left? Colonel Sanders? He's no threat. I don't even know who else is up there now. It's Hillary, Colonel Sanders, and who else? Is there a third one? I don't remember. I don't even know who was up there. Who was there? It just shows you. Who else? You don't remember, do you, Robert? Who? Who? Chafee. He looked like a pallbearer in a Civil War daguerreotype. Lincoln Chafee, a real candidate. If you were painting a picture of the Civil War in sepia tones, it would be his face. Where they got him from is like a constructed face. He's not a threat. So it's nobody. It's Hillary versus the Colonel Sanders. So that's that. So I was talking about that. So the number two, Netanyahu's comments I mentioned. I asked who in radio is more prophetic or more far-seeing than me, and of course, the nobody. Because just yesterday in this program, I don't know how I did it, I talked about the Palestinian Mufti, his relationship to Nazism, his desire to bring the plans for a gas chamber to the Middle East and exterminate all the Jews going back in the 1930s before the state of Israel had even been founded. And I challenged all of the anti-Zionists who listen to this show, including Jews, who themselves are anti-Zionist, many of these liberal psychotics, to understand that it has nothing to do with the state of Israel. It has to do with the race of Jews itself that they wanted to exterminate. Nothing to do with Israel. And I talked about it, and yet I wake up this morning, and here's Netanyahu saying the very same thing. So I said to myself, maybe the listeners are right who believe in me and call me such beautiful names. And I don't know. So I said, what difference does it make whether I have prophetic qualities or not? You know, what difference does that really make? At the end of the day, I'm still a man on a bicycle, still facing all the issues of aging, still facing all the issues of fears, doubts, loneliness that every other man on earth has ever faced, including the prophets. It doesn't make me any better or any worse. The fact is, it just gives me an ability to see things in a certain way and broadcast them on radio and write them down in books. That's about it. It doesn't make me into some saint with a halo. So that's an interesting statement unto itself. Of course, in every generation, there are people who have prophetic qualities. I'm not the only one. What does that really mean at the end of the day? Well, if you agree with them, you say, wow, the guy can see things I can't see. So let's listen to him. Of course it's prophetic. It's like a given. It's not just hot air the way the left would have you say. So you look at Ezekiel, you look at the other prophets, Jeremiah and the Bible. They also had the same issues, whatever they were. Aging, loneliness, boredom, fears, hopes, dreams, wishes, memories, dreams. We're all human. That's what unites all of us. And that brings us to the point of the caller point of the hour. And in the minute I get back, we're going to take some callers, including a caller from Israel who was a soldier on the ground. I'll be right back. Surprising to stand. One of the best movies I've ever seen was that movie, American whatever. I forget it. I don't know how they did that movie. Welcome back. What was it called? American something or other. All right. My number one point was that the Russian incursion into Syria is a good thing for world stability and especially good for the Middle East and doubly especially good for Israel. Jonathan's calling from Israel. Jonathan, welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Hi. First of all, I'm calling from Judea and Samaria in the West Bank, and I have to say I've been serving for about 2 years, and it's such an honor to speak with you.
Well, I don't know how you people put up with civilians being stabbed and not cracking down on them. I don't understand how a country survives letting people do this to civilians, women, children, stab them, cut their throats, and put up with liberal garbage. You have a very bad situation in Israel with your Peace Now Quisling movement that has undermined the state of Israel itself for the last 20 years.
Of course. That's the worst thing, is the self-hating Jew has always been one of our worst problems. But, you know, speaking of diversity in Israel, which is what you were speaking about with the massive wave of Russian immigration, look, I'm an American Israeli serving in the West Bank, and Israel right now is on the forefront of the fight for Western civilization. And, you know, I serve with Arab Christians and Druze, and from all stripes and all colors and all people, and Ethiopian Jews and Christians, and we fight together. And from left and right, people are being stabbed. Women and children are being murdered in the streets. And there's such a moral relativism from the White House. There's such a moral relativism from UNESCO.
Yeah, don't expect anything from... Look, Israel's always only had one friend in the world, and that was the United States, until it was taken over from within. And Barack Obama today has the same mentality as the United Nations has always had toward Israel, which is that the Jews are always wrong and Israel has no right to exist. So don't expect anything to change from him. He is exactly what you think he is. The fact is, though, how would you, if you were advising your defense chief, what would you do to stop the stabbings in Israel?
It's an incredibly hard problem, because not only are they using grown men to stab women and children, they're using the women. There was a story of a 13-year-old boy who stabbed someone that I personally know. It's an incredibly hard situation because you never know where they're going to come from. And there is an incredibly strong paranoia in the streets, and people don't know what to do. And the only...
Well, wait a minute. This fear is exactly what the Palestinian terrorists want to induce in the Israeli population. But I've got to tell you, looking at it from the outside in the safety of the United States of America, and I admit that I'm sitting here in a bubble looking in from the outside. I'm not in the same position that you are or the average Israeli, but I will tell you this is happening for a reason. It's a wink from the White House. They were told to start a new intifada, and there is a reason for it. They want Israel to give up Judea and Samaria so Obama can leave office with yet another notch on his belt of destroying Judeo-Christianity around the globe.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And I'll tell you, even throughout this paranoia, we will not be going anywhere. We will stay here and we will fight.
Well, you have nowhere to go. That's the point. You can't move to Delaware. You have nowhere to move. You can't go west. You're trapped. There's nowhere to go. And eventually Israel's going to have to fight back. And I'm afraid to say to you, it's going to be biblical. It's going to be an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And you're going to have to start doing to them what they're doing to you.
Absolutely. But every time we do it, you have that moral relativism. You have Russia flattening cities in Syria. And we have collateral damage in Gaza and the West Bank. And the whole world...
Well, then close Israel off to the news. Kick them out of your country. Throw the left-wing vermin out and do what you have to do to save your people, or you'll see another Holocaust in your own life. Get rid of all of the quislings from the American and European Union. They hate themselves. They hate their own country. They hate their own race. They hate the religion of their parents, and they will destroy you. Kick them out and do what you have to do to save your people, or there'll be another Holocaust.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282.
Joe Biden is a man who has devoted his entire life to public service and to the well-being of working families and the middle class. He made a difficult decision based on the needs of his family and his view of his future, and I respect the decision that he made. I want to thank Joe Biden.
You got the picture. He's very presidential now, really dignified speeches, and they cleaned up his act a bit. The spittle is gone. They modified the meds. They took him off the spittle-producing meds, put him on another one. I think it's the one that produces spittle on the side of the mouth is lithium. And I suspect they took him off lithium and put him on straight old Prozac to control the spittle. Very presidential, though, now. Speaking differently, got him a new suit. No more Robert Hall. No more used suits. I think they're buying new suits now for $39.99. Buy one, get 7 free. Anyway, what are you going to do? This is the political world that we live in. You've got insane leadership across the entire Western Hemisphere. Western Europe, America. Insane. And it's getting worse by the day. You got the hag waiting in the wings, like she's all new and fresh, like no one ever heard of her before. I don't mind woman. Get me a woman. Where'd this one? Never heard of her. Who's Hillary? Oh, she's fresh. They cleaned her up. There were no scandals associated with the Clinton family for 8 years. No. She's brand new. We don't know who she is or what she's going to do. We have no idea. She's going to save America. She's going to come in and clean things up with the rolling pin. Or the broom, whatever she has. How in the world could people fall for it? I just don't get it. I don't get it. Pot users double. Obese, stupid, drug addicts, crackheads. A mad country falling apart at the seams. And in Europe, as I said, Hitler invaded other countries. Merkel's invading her own country. Same psychopath. She's doing it strictly to make certain that her party retains power forever. It's all power madness. She'd burn her country to the ground to hold on to power in the very, very same manner that maniac did. In other words, Hitler did it one way. He imposed his Nazi Germanic view on other countries by invading them. She's doing the opposite. She's invading her own country. But it's for the same reasons. Power madness. Look, it was said best by the English, the smartest people in the history of the world at the time, when that great, I think it was Lord Acton, I'm not sure who wrote, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Whether it applies to Obama or Merkel, any one of them, once they get in power, they will never let go of it. Ever. If she were arrested for what she did in Benghazi and was taken away in handcuffs, she'd run from prison and win. She's like Evita Peron. Evita Clinton. Same exact thing. She's got the vote locked up. That's the problem. It's as simple as that. 855-400-7282 is the phone number. We got one open line. Margarita, LOB Radio. Welcome to the Savage Nation. What's on your mind, Margarita?
Yes, spot on, Dr. Savage, about everything, but especially about what you said about Merkel. I want to also bring up the fact we should not forget where she is originally from and where she spent her formative years. and obviously in East Germany, and now she's selling.
But wait, Margarita, I understand you. Why would her East German roots be dictating her madness?
I think it's partially responsible because a lot of them have not. They did not work through the Nazi past the way the West Germans have.
Well, hold on. This is so important to me. It's a subtlety that I don't quite understand immediately. I'm sure I can grasp it, and my listeners can. Explain it in a little more detail. The West Germans have worked through the guilt, and they're not as guilty, so they don't feel as obligated to bend over backwards, in other words. For example, in this case, the Syrian Muslims. But you're saying the East Germans are still guilty from the Holocaust, so they're still bending over backwards and doing crazy things, such as flooding their own nation with Syrian Muslims?
They are also they are still very more fascist than I would like, just because they were under communism. I mean, it's the same.
Oh, you're saying the instincts of the leadership is more autocratic amongst those who come out of the East German background. Is what you're saying, right?
Exactly. And, when she first came to power, I was on a home visit. I asked my cousin of what, I come from southern Germany, very different a place. And what he thought of her, he said, I don't really want to vote socialist or left, but he said, I just don't trust her. And
so people don't understand that Merkel didn't run as a socialist. Merkel ran as a center-right candidate, and she ruled as a center-right candidate. I am bewildered by how they've turned her so quickly.
Well, I think there is much more behind it. I think she, just like so many others, are beholden to. They're all one gang together, beholden to somebody or something. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in that. But yet there is just something weird going on. Look at it. In the biggest protest in Germany against this whole business now is in former East German Dresden, okay? And in there that's where the party that's protesting against her and against all the so-called asylum seekers.
But Margarita, isn't Dresden overrun by folks of the Muslim persuasion?
Well, yes, but that's where the biggest protests by the natives are, and they get brutally put down by the government and everything.
Yeah, why is the German government beating up and arresting conservatives who believe in their own nation's identity, borders, language, and culture? How does a country turn on itself like that? Well, the very same elements, in my opinion, are going on in this country, where nationalists, traditionalists, conservatives, however you want to put it, are seen as the enemy of the Obama administration. How is it that the people who most identify with their own nation are now seen as the enemy of the leadership of their own nations?
I don't know. I'm looking for an answer. I'm getting it doubly. I'm getting.
Well, I mean, I've given some glib answers, such as liberalism is a mental disorder, but I'll elaborate a little further. They are power mad. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. The liberal will use any means necessary. Paralegal, it doesn't matter. Robbing votes, stuffing the ballot box, bringing in illegal aliens to vote in order to hold on to power. So it's all about power and money. There's the answer. They have no respect for democracy. They have no respect for the rule of law. They are fundamentally a gangster regime. Margarita, stay on the line. It's all explained in Government Zero. No borders, no language, no culture. It's that simple. KBOI Radio. Brian, go ahead. You're up on the Savage Nation. Fire away to the airwaves.
Dr. Savage, thank you for your time in advance. Also, apologize about my voice. We got some allergies going on. Anyway, hey, you were right on the money with your show yesterday several times, but one comment in particular, which I thought for a long time, the Liberal Party, as you said, they invent problems before they exist.
Oh, wait, I have the note right here. Hillary invents grievances before they exist. That's the exact quote.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Well, for instance, global warming. Shoot, there's so much stuff. It just blows my mind.
Well, Hillary invents grievances before they exist. She's playing the little woman who's being attacked because she's an innocent woman by the evil white male. Isn't that her new game? Isn't that her game with Barbara Boxer in the supporting role of the contralto on the stage with her? That the poor woman is being attacked by the evil Republicans only because she's a woman, not because she's a corrupt hag?
Well, you're
all right, my friend. Copy of Government Zero goes out to you. Here's a story that should give you some courage, that at last Jerry Brown has seen the light, and that at last the governor of the state of California, the place where there's not only a one-party system, but virtually a no-party system with one autocrat named Jerry Brown running it, I've finally seen that the man has come to his senses. California sets inmate sex reassignment rules. Now you say, well, what do you mean? You're being facetious. No. Jerry Brown has set standards in the nation for determining when transgender inmates should receive state-funded sex reassignment surgery. I mean, there are standards now. They're not just going to give sex reassignment surgery to anyone who asks for it. It just shows you how centrist Jerry Brown is. There are new policies now. You see, the inmate who wants to have, well, if it's a man wants to become a she and they want to cut it off, they have to go to prison mental health professionals. Now, of course, as you well know, prison mental health professionals are at the top of the field. They're like cruise ship doctors. You understand that. And to qualify to have the Schmendrick cut off, prisoners must be diagnosed with what is formerly known as gender dysphoria. Now, what that means, no one knows. It was invented, of course, by the liberal psychiatric profession in order to build up yet another DSM category. There is nothing called gender dysphoria. It's an invented category, again, by the psychos who write these books. And the prisoner must have lived as a member of the preferred gender for at least 12 months. Well, that's a long time. And expressed a desire for sex reassignment surgery for at least 2 years. Who would they have expressed it to? I don't know. I guess they could find an old email to Mom saying, "Dear Mom, although I'm 75, I finally realized that I really have been a woman trapped in a man's body. And although I'm an ugly old man with no hair, I am going to go for sex reassignment surgery so I can live out the rest of my years as a transgendered whatever I am." I don't know. Who else wants to become a tranny granny? Except in this country. Who would want to become a tranny granny? So I'm glad to see that Jerry Brown has instituted sex reassignment rules, because I was afraid that anyone could get it. And they developed new requirements. And they would develop with the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Well, some are cheering it. Flor Bermudez, detention project director at the so-called Oakland-based Transgender Law Center that represented two psychos seeking the surgery, said it's a great victory for transgender people across the country. And I think it's a model that other jurisdictions can follow. The 8-page policy document calls for inmates who request the surgery and meet the criteria to be referred for evaluation to a committee of 2 crackpot doctors, 2 psychiatrists, 2 nutty psychologists, who will then make a crackpot recommendation to a higher level panel of medical professionals. But hold on, don't be shocked. California is really showing restraint. The new sex inmate reassignment surgery rules prohibits procedures that are considered merely cosmetic, including hair removal, facelifts, breast augmentations, or other implants. Now, they could save that for a few years from now, when the ACLU starts suing, saying, well, you know, my client is now a woman. But what woman is not entitled to a facelift at public expense in the prisons? Or my client is now living as a woman, but what woman doesn't want shapely breasts and implants provided by the taxpayers? And we're going to sue for that. That's the next step on the slippery slope of insanity. And now you understand the rest of the story as to why ISIS is raging across the globe. This is the Savage Nation. Back in a minute.
Never seen her so blue, you know I could not run.
Have you ever been scared by a witch?
Seen each other in
No. Crony socialism scares me more than witches do. Even witches should be afraid of liberals. That's all I can tell you. If they could, they would tax the broomstick. Yeah, witches should know that. That if you let socialists take over a country, they'll tax your broomstick. You only be able to afford a broom. Now, I invented the phrase crony socialism the other day, so I threw it up on Facebook. It's got I had a lot of people like that one. And, I was going to get to al-Husani and the Muslims and the Nazis, which I did yesterday before Netanyahu's famous speech. I cannot believe it. I like how they criticized Ben Carson 2 weeks ago for saying that if Jews had had guns, it would have altered the course of the Holocaust. It's 100% true. But immediately the drug addicts in the media go crazy on Ben Carson. The ones who hate guns, oh, dare you say that? Then they get the liberal Jews from the ADL. He's crazy. Jews are afraid of guns. We're all like Larry David. We're afraid he'll go off and shoot us. No, it's true, though. I told you I studied this in great detail. I had a psychiatrist 20 years ago, whose parents were wiped out by the Nazis. And he sat and patiently explained to me that had every Jew had a handgun in Germany in the early 1930s, the Holocaust would have been altered. He said it probably never would have occurred. And he explained how it would have happened. See, and people say, oh, well, when the Jews stood up, they were killed anyway. Yeah, by then it was too late. And they did it with stolen guns, idiot. I mean, every book you ever read about Jews who survived after running into the woods, they survived if they're stealing farmers' guns or stealing guns from soldiers who they killed. Then they could survive in the woods, you morons. They didn't survive on love and love beads. Every story of survival of Jews who fled to the woods under Hitler is about guns. They couldn't have gotten through one day without a gun. They had to steal them from farmers or kill Germans and steal their guns. Do you understand that? So anyway, to go back to the issue of had every Jew had a 22, the psychiatrist explained to me that Germany in the early days of the Holocaust was still a very, very orderly society. The Germans were very orderly, very neat, very clean. They didn't like disorder. And Hitler was pulling the wool over their eyes. They thought he was a miracle worker because in the early days, he was invading nations. They called him the bloodless leader because he was able to gain nations' territory without killing. It was almost no German loss of life. They thought he was the Messiah. And in those early days, if the Jews had had guns, and once they started rounding Jews up, and the Gestapo came to the door, and the knock came from the men in the raincoats, and they told the Jews to pack their bags and come with them, if the man of the house had said meekly, quietly, yes, sir, whatever, I will come with you in a moment. May I please get my bag and get his wife and children together? Yes, sure, they would have let him get it. And if he came out blasting and shot the Gestapo in the face, knowing he would die, if every Jew had done that, that would have altered the course of the Holocaust, because the average German in the neighboring apartments would have freaked out and known what was going on and opposed it. That's what the psychiatrist explained to me. Ben Carson is 100% right. The liberal psycho gun haters are 100% wrong.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
It is The Savage Nation. Now, if you think I'm anti-immigrant, you're a fool. You're a racist. What I've discovered is that these Hispanic mobs that spit at Trump supporters, they're the most vicious racists in the country. That's right, you heard me. And you got to give it back to them. There's a video going around of a Hispanic troublemaking, all-around bad person screaming against Trump, wearing an insulting T-shirt. So he gets in the face with one of the Trump supporters who spits in his face. Because people have had enough of these people who think they can come here illegally and take over the country, and they're standing up to them. That's why they support Trump. I'm telling you, you've got to stand up to them. They're out of control. All of these radical groups have been empowered by Barack Hussein Obama. That's why they're acting up, because they've been empowered by the President of the United States to act up and basically take over the middle class of the country and intimidate you by bullying you. In plain old English, it's bullying. But having said that, I want to move on to another topic, which is immigration itself. Many of you say that anyone who opposes illegal immigration is a racist because you've been taught to do that to scare people. Well, I would argue that people who scream racism at every turn are the biggest racists in the country. And let me give you my position on immigration again, in case you missed it. Borders, language, culture. Borders, language, culture. Borders, language, culture. We need an orderly, legal immigration plan and program. I've said that. I'm not going to beat you up with this all over again. But I want to give you an anecdote about what I actually think of immigration. I went to dinner. I didn't want to drive because I had a drink in my house, and I was warned by my son, who's 10 times smarter than me, never drive when you have as much as a drink because the cops are vicious. Instead of going after the crack dealers and the murderers, they'll pull a housewife over who had a beer. We understand how that works. So I don't drive if I had a drink. I usually either have a driver, I use Uber. Woman picked me up, young lady, got me to the restaurant. That's another experience unto itself. Let me tell you all about that one another day. But when I finished the dinner, I hit the Uber app. It didn't work. I had to call my assistant to hit the Uber app on his phone to make it work. Got picked up about 8 minutes later. Got in the car with Teddy. Now, every time I call Uber, I'm afraid I'm going to get a fanatical jihadi who says no dogs allowed. In which case, I'm ready to fight with him. I'm telling you right now, they're not taking me over nor my country. I'd call the police before I give in to one of them. I tell him to go back to the hellhole he came from if he doesn't like dogs. Go back where you came from. This is America. But he didn't. Guy picks me up. He's an African. We start to talk. And we start talking about family. I figure that's something that, all races, all countries can relate to. He was a big man, great voice. And I'm talking the ride was 11 minutes. That's all it was. And as it turns out, we talked about children and how he raises his children, how I raise my children. Very similar. He's a father at home with 3 or 4 children. He's from Nigeria. And very respectful. Everything was yes, sir, and that kind of thing. And, I find that respect generates respect in people. It's an amazing thing. Conversation stayed on a very even keel. And then when he dropped me at my house, I gave him a $20 tip. I didn't know you're not supposed to tip on Uber. I figure if a guy's working cab, what do I care? He didn't know who I was. But I know he's a family man. He's struggling. He's raising children. He's trying to do it the right way. So I gave him a $20 tip. I'm telling you exactly the way it is. The next words were very interesting. I said to him after I gave him the tip, not before, I said, do you ever listen to talk radio? He said, yes, I do. And I saw his eyes widen when he looked focused on me. And he said, are you the great Michael Savage? He says, oh, man, I listen to you every day. He said, you are absolutely the greatest. You're like a god to me. Now, ask yourself a question. How is it that a black African male can love this show? Well, the answer is the same way a Haitian cab driver loves this show in New York City. I remember I was in New York a year and a half ago, and a Haitian drove me to WABC. Another big fan of the show. If you listen to what the media tells you, you're going to get a distorted view of reality. The only reality that you should recognize is the reality that you find in the real world. That's the world of the real world, the street world. You understand what I'm saying to you? Do you get this or not? So I'm saying that I guess I'm saying 2 things. I'm saying I'd like to see 1 million Africans from Nigeria who are Christians come in. See, he was a Nigerian Christian, which is why he came here to work hard, why he understands America, why he fits in with America, why he loves the savage nation. Do you get what I'm saying to you? And why is Obama bringing in Syrian Muslims instead of Syrian Christians? Why is Obama kicking Syrian Christians out of the country who've been sitting here waiting for months to be accepted? I'll let you figure that one out as well. There's got to be a compatibility with the nation or the nation dies. See, a house divided cannot stand. You can't tell that to Hollywood because they're too drug-addled to understand that. They're brain dead. They're stupid. That's why they're rallying around Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. These people are digging their own graves. How can people who are such high earners want to pay more taxes? They're insane. Liberalism is a mental disorder. Do you understand it? Ladies, pay attention to this. This is a curveball. The Army Secretary said women might soon have to register for the draft. This is intriguing. Secretary of the Army John McHugh says that he anticipates draft registration for both sexes will be approved by Congress in the near future. This is a blockbuster. If your objective is true and pure equality, then you have to look at all aspects of how women function in the military, McHugh said at a military convention in Washington, D.C. Draft registration for women would have to be approved by Congress, McHugh noted. predicting that the change is inevitable if we find ourselves as a military with writ large, where men and women have equal opportunities and believe we should. Oh, boy. This is very interesting. So one of the reasons they snookered women into this equality business is to get them as draftees. They need cannon fodder. And if they can get it from women, they don't care. They can run women over minefields the same way they can run men over minefields. I'm just using it as an example. I didn't say they would. As you know, Obama's given away the store. He based the military to the point where no one even knows if it can fight a war anymore. There's no leadership. I mean, you take away... Remember the old cowboy and Indian movies that you watched as a kid? Well, I don't think they made them in your day if you're younger than me. When I was a kid, there were cowboy and Indian movies. And it was well known that if you killed the chief, the Indians couldn't fight. That's what Obama has done to the military. He's put in an incompetent moron at every level. And including the Defense Department itself. I never saw anything like it. The guy couldn't finish a sentence without almost crying. That's the new defense secretary. But nevertheless, we have a very dangerous situation that's emerged. I'm sure Bernie Sanders would be a great commander-in-chief. Nothing like an anti-American socialist communist spitter, draft dodger, to be commander-in-chief. Yes, sir! I could just see the Marines, the special forces, saluting Bernie Sanders. That'd be the end of the road. But don't laugh. This country is so sick that I could see a wild card like that freak becoming president, very much along the lines of how Hollande, a very similar weakling coward, became the premier of France. Same thing, socialist, drove all people of money crazy. They wanted to leave the country. In fact, Depardieu became a Russian citizen. Not that he's a prize. Depardieu is some prize, hates America. Let him stay in Russia where he belongs. But anyway, you want to see a real serious problem? Chinese space weapons revealed. I know, go to sleep now. Go to sleep. Bill Gertz is a defense reporter for Washington Times. And he says China has now such advanced space weapons programs that they can destroy or jam U.S. satellites and limit American combat operations around the world. I will not read you the article. They can knock our satellites out of the air at lower and higher orbits. Well, they're under development to do that. They're developing co-orbital anti-satellite weapons. On and on and on. I linked it up on michaelsavage.com. You say, well, what can you do about it? Well, for one, you can get rid of an anti-American, anti-military, anti-family, anti-church administration. You can do that. You could fire them. Couldn't you do that? The enemy is everywhere. The people don't know which way to turn. The news is so awful. Crime is out of control. De Blasio is a psychopath. He takes down a picture of George Washington, puts up a picture of a revolutionary, and no one says a word. Obama got rid of the bust of Winston Churchill. No one said a word. Right in front of your eyes, your country's been snatched out from under your eyes, and they're continuing to do it. No one says a word. And if you dare say a word, you're a right-wing racist. Well, you know what? They can go you nowhere. Get in their faces. Don't let them steal your country from you. Take it back from them. The news is so horrible. Let me read you the headlines in case you think I'm ad-libbing, just to get through the show. Here, France's top weatherman sparks storm over book questioning climate change. In other words, he saw reality. He criticized the world's top climate change liars. He said climate investigation is filled with misleading data, so the French are in shock. Chicago police, illegal alien rapes sleeping woman. Isn't that part of their lifestyle? Next story. Sanctuary cities on the rise, releasing more than 9,000 criminals in the U.S. illegally. Isn't that the object? Is to intimidate the population? Next story. Murdered woman hanging from fence mistaken for Halloween decoration. Isn't that normal in Chicago? Next story. FBI director says Islamic State is recruiting 24 hours a day in all 50 states. Isn't that the object? I mean, what is he telling us this for? Why would the FBI director put out a story like that? He says hundreds of people are consuming social media efforts to either draw them overseas to join the extremists, or if you can't come, kill where you are, FBI Director Comey said. Then why aren't you stopping it, sir? Why aren't you hacking into these individuals and arresting them, sir? What are you doing this for? You're letting them recruit? Why are they not stopped from recruiting? The biggest stupidity I've ever seen is that if an American citizen leaves America to join a terrorist group, why are they allowed back in? Why is their citizenship not immediately withdrawn? Because we're not a sane nation and we have an enemy within who wants them back here. And what else are you going to conclude? Any other conclusion? Either the presidency is filled with morons or they want them back here. Is there any other conclusion you can come to? No. The biggest question is Merkel insane or being blackmailed? I don't understand how this woman, who was a centrist, center-right, is not only admitting in hundreds of thousands of Syrian Muslims who are rioting in the streets of Germany, they're suing the government for more welfare. I swear to God. I found the article. I said, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. They're suing Germany for not giving them more welfare and faster in Germany. Demanding it. Most of them are from Chechnya, no less. By the way. Just what we need here, more. It's unbelievable to me. The whole West has lost its mind, and it's you-know-what. Are we running out of time already in this stop set? Yeah, I'll be back. Life goes on. We don't know what tomorrow will bring, and we just keep praying and hoping for the best. And we try our best to put the right people in power, and it never works out. It's usually the worst and the dumbest rise to the highest places in the land. That's been my experience in most of my life. If I look back politically, who can I actually say was a president that I respected? When I was a boy, Dwight D. Eisenhower was president. Naturally, I looked up to him. He was a war hero. I didn't even have to question who he was. I knew he led the Allied invasion on D-Day. That's all I knew. I loved the man. I looked up to him. I felt safe in America. That's all I knew about politics as a kid. And I would say that what I felt as a kid for politics is what the average American feels for politics today. Do you actually trust or feel safe with that person in office? And the answer with Obama is a resounding no. Nobody trusts him. Nobody feels safe with him. He's a snake, and nothing that he does is reliable. It's all a lie. So that's the fact of the matter. Now you go back to Bush, another snake. Another snake used the bumblingness to cover up his work for the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergs, whoever you want to call them. Those who really control the money in the world pick the president. So Bush was another one. At least he took the war to the enemy. Unfortunately, people would say he picked the wrong enemy. And as I wrote in a book in 2006, it could be the greatest military blunder in American history, and it was. I said, because if this goes wrong in Iraq, what we're going to see is a new Persia emerge. Okay? And it did go wrong. And it was the unintended consequences. And so that was that. So now let's go back before him. Who was president before him? Why, it was Bill Clinton. Oh, that's ripe for a little discussion. But we'll skip right over Clinton. Let's go back to before Clinton. Who was president before him? Well, at some point, we're going to come back to Ronald Reagan, for whom Reagan, for many people, was God. He was not God for me. I didn't think he was that great a president. There are those who were, again, glorifying him and turning him into more than a man. He was a good man up to a certain point, but he was not that great. And frankly, he did a lot of bad things. Not everything he did was so great, okay? Would I choose him today? Yes, 100%. Was he better than that whole slew of people I just mentioned? 100%. But was he perfect? No. He was just a man. So what am I saying to you? What I'm saying to you is, let's not ask too much of our politicians. Because at the end of the day, they're only people, number one. They're not better than us. Many of them are not even as good as us. They're just what they are. And the word politician inherently has within it the word deceiver or liar. There's a very famous painting that I love to go and see at the museum here in San Francisco. I had it on my website years ago. It is set in colonial America, where a group of farmers are sitting around a Cracker Barrel, turned over, big barrel, like a wine barrel, a Cracker Barrel. And then there's they're wearing farmer clothes. They look scruffy. And then in the room, in this little room with 6 or 8 farmers, there's a guy well-dressed with a nice suit on talking to them with great rhetoric. And the painting is called The Politician. So what does that say to you? What do you expect from these people? What do you actually expect from these people? Do you expect them to tell you the truth? They're put in power by bigger powers. Look at a guy like Rubio. You know he's a non-entity. I'm not saying he's a bad person. Don't get me wrong. Probably a decent guy, but you know he's a non-entity. He's a zero. He's not known for anything. Has he invented anything? Has he built a business? Has he built a hospital? Has he performed an operation? He's not known for anything. So who was picking him? Sheldon Adelson, a billionaire Republican, and Larry Ellison, a billionaire Democrat. So ask yourself a question. Why would a billionaire Democrat and a billionaire Republican pick Rubio? They both want massive amounts of cheap labor. They don't care beyond profit. If you own a hotel chain, you want cheap labor forever. You don't care what it does to America. If you have a software company and you're a software giant, you want to make sure your costs are as low as possible. You don't care how you devastate the American tech worker. You don't care. If you're Mark Zuckerberg, you don't care how many billions you have. There's not enough money in the world for a man like you. By the way, Government Zero has gone to #1 under politics on Amazon before its publication next Tuesday. They did it. I didn't complain to them. And they talked about al-Husseini, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, during World War II, and how he collaborated with Hitler, and how the Muslims wanted to build gas chambers in the Middle East to exterminate the Jews. Now, this should be a wake-up call to all of the liberals who hate Israel, the liars, many of whom are Jewish, by the way, who say that they're not anti-Semitic because they're Jewish themselves, but they're anti-Zionist. What these fools should know is that al-Husseini wanted to exterminate the Jews in the Middle East before Israel was even created. I'm talking about 1940, 41, 42. There was no Israel. There was no Israel. There was no state of Israel. Al-Husseini, a Muslim, worked with Hitler, got the plans for the gas chambers at Dachau, and wanted to build gas chambers in the Middle East and round up all the Jews in every country in the Middle East and exterminate them. Did you know that? They didn't teach you that at Harvard? All of you geniuses on the Middle East who are oh so preposterously in favor of the poor oppressed Palestinians. You didn't know that about their history, did you? You don't know that their end goal is extermination. You know nothing about this. You also don't know the equation of the Middle East. We keep hearing that the Jews kicked the Palestinians off their own land, and that the Palestinians are the underdog, and how can you not identify with the underdog, and the Jews are evil imperialists who stole the land. I've heard it all. I've analyzed it all. And I'm sure there are many cases of that being true in the Middle East, in Israel, by the way, per se. But there are many cases of that not being true. In many cases, the Arabs gladly sold garbage land to the Jews. Garbage, useless, rocky hillsides that they could not cultivate for thousands of years, that the Jews made flour and grew crops on. And what you also don't know, but that they didn't teach you at Yale or Harvard, is that at the same time that Israel was created, the Muslims went on a warpath in northern Africa. Libya ring a bell? Algeria. Look at the countries of North Africa. Jewish people had lived there for 1,000 years. Guess what your friends, the Muslims, did to the Jews? They stole their land and kicked them out of the country. 700,000 Jews were thrown out of northern Africa. Jews had lived there for 500 years, rather. 500 years. Think about 500 years. Their land was stolen, property stolen, bank accounts stolen, and they were driven out. And where did the Jews go? They went to Israel. It was the only place on earth that would take them. So the next time you get up and smoke your liberal lies, get the whole picture right here on the Savage Nation. So now, having said that, let's move on to what's happening in America. You're being pushed aside by the social engineers called Al-Hussein Obama. Al-Hussein Obama is doing to this country a damage that you'll never understand in your lifetime. You'll never understand the damage Al-Hussein is doing and why he's doing it. Whether it's a military that's now broken, whether it's the leadership of the military that's been decapitated, or weapon systems that are almost antiquated, the man has almost reduced us to a second-class nation in terms of a military. You don't know any of this because you haven't been told about this from the potheads and the crack addicts in the media. The crackheads who don't look like they're crackheads in the media, believe me, they are the ones who are responsible for what's happening. Because the crackheads in the media are supposed to be the estate, the fourth estate, that keeps the government in check. But aside from Michael Savage and a very few others in the media, there is no fourth estate. It's the fifth column. The fifth column marching alongside the liberal fascists who are stamping on us. Not stamping out the grapes of wrath, by the way, but literally growing the poison seeds. Poison seeds. Some schmuck with tattoos with a fist has just been elected in Canada. He's the son of a moron named Trudeau. Trudeau is a playboy, an all-around useless idiot who destroyed Canada with his liberalism and stupidity. Another golden boy. Ruined Canada. Now all of a sudden the son is now elected. Why was he elected? Because he's got a good body and he's got tattoos. So now what does he want to do? The first thing this idiot in Canada says he wants to do is save the environment. He wants to talk about carbon. Another genius. Another moron doesn't even know what carbon is. He has the scientific literacy of Al Sharpton. Well, how can you say that? He's got a 10-pack on his stomach and he's got a tattoo on his left shoulder and he's a boxer. He must be smarter than everybody else. Well, if you're a fan of the American media, I guess you can grade someone's intelligence by the tightness of their stomach and the number of tattoos that are on their skin. So the fact of the matter is, this is what the idiot's talking about, carbon and bringing in more refugees. I swear to you, he wants to bring in more Syrian refugees into Canada. Can you believe this? You better believe it. The world is breaking up right in front of your eyes. Now the question is, why are liberals so quick to embrace this invasion? And why are traditionalists and conservatives like myself so resistant to erasing the borders, language, and culture of this great nation? Is it a self-evident question? Or too complicated? It is not a classroom, I understand that. I'm speaking with you as though we're in a classroom, holding a seminar on the crisis, the refugee crisis facing the world right now, because that's the number one crisis in the world. I know most of us don't think about it every day. We go about our daily business. Money, family, kids, soccer, dentists, cancer, heart attacks, prostate difficulties, fallen arches, broken bones, broken teeth, hair falling out, psoriasis. I get the picture. So wherever you are, and I try to imagine where you are, I know where I am. I know that I, as an immigrant son, think only about the refugee crisis. And for one reason, as an immigrant son, I have to ask myself, of all people in the radio, I have to ask myself 3 times, why do I oppose relocating 100,000 Syrian refugees into this country? Why? Can you answer that question? Can you figure it out? And the embarrassing point is that people will always compare the situation to the Jews in the Holocaust. I mean, it's the underlying motif of the entire liberal establishment. The substrata of this entire argument, and the emotional substrata of this entire argument, is based upon the Jews under Nazi Germany. It's a false argument. It's a false one on many levels. Many levels it's a false one. And I'm sure you can figure out why it's false and why the narrative is being used by those who want to flood America with refugees for their own reasons. Lutheran Family Services is doing it only for the greed. They're demanding 100,000 because they make money off it. Baptist Family Services, they're doing it because they're greedy. They make money off it. Catholic Family Charities are doing it because they make money off it. So you could figure out what I'm saying to you. There's a lot of self-interest. There's a lot of greed. But the comparison to the Jews fleeing Germany in the Holocaust is a faulty analogy for a number of reasons, which I don't think I have to spell out to you unless you're that thick and you really do think it's the equivalent of Jews running from the gas chambers, because it's not Jews running from the gas chambers at all. This is Muslims running for a better way of life at your expense. Because the fact of the matter is, wherever they go, take a look at it. Look at Sweden. Look at Norway. Look at Denmark. Look at Germany. Look at the trail of filth. Take a look at it. How can we take care of refugees when we have so many indigenous poor in this country right now? What, is everybody here rich? All of a sudden, the country is rolling in money? All of a sudden, Obama has cleared everything up and there are no poor in this country who need the help of the government? How in the world can you not see that there's something wrong with this picture? Now we have the issue of tolerance. And many years I've preached how ultra-tolerance is killing us. I've told you that 100 times. And we have a brainwashed generation of drug children raised on Adderall, marijuana, other toxic compounds, and outright brainwashing in the government schools, where they believe in things that are false as though they are truths. They have no religion. Their religion is liberalism. And the doxies of liberalism, I can give you the 10 commandments of liberalism. I can make them up on the spot if you'd like. 1, man is evil and poisoning the earth. 2, the earth is a living organism and needs to be protected. 3, all white people are racist. 4, all people of color are good. 5, all refugees should be allowed in. 6, there are people make too much money. It should be taken from them. I can go down the list. All you got to do is listen to Bernie Sanders, and you can fill in 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 commandments right there. And so you understand you have a brainwashed youth vote. You have a drugged youth vote. You have immigrants who want things for free that are being legitimized in an illegitimate way. Jerry Brown, for example, in his criminal ways, has now allowed the Department of Motor Vehicles in California to automatically register illegal aliens so that they guarantee not a one-party system in California, which is what we already have, but a no-party system. Just an autocrat. No party necessary. Just an autocrat in Sacramento, an autocrat in Washington. So you're watching the dissolution of democracy itself under the guise of diversity. Diversity is destroying democracy. Very clear, isn't it? Do I make things clear enough for you? Diversity destroying democracy. It's a major theme in Government Zero, which, by the way, has gone to #1 under politics on Amazon before its publication next Tuesday. It's already #1 on politics, which means that people who are political want that book. We're talking about the swamping of Europe with Muslim refugees. The main question facing us is this question: is diversity destroying democracy? Or, as the liberals would argue, diversity, in fact, is making democracy stronger. Now, until this time, I would say that diversity has made America great. The melting pot. Isn't that what we heard ever since we've been a child? The melting pot, the melting pot, the melting pot. And then all of a sudden what happened was the melting pot became the chamber pot. We were no longer bringing in immigrants who wanted to lead a decent life and contribute to the country. We're bringing in immigrants who did the opposite. They contributed nothing except crime and disease, and they sucked the system dry. I'm not naming a particular group. You can put 2 and 2 together. You can attach a name tag to that particular statement if you wish. So now we're at the verge of destroying the melting pot in a way it can never, ever be healed by bringing in 100,000 Syrian refugees. Now, you could argue that at least with the Hondurans and Guatemalans and El Salvadorans and Mexicans, we see with our own eyes how hard they work. The predominant number of them are family members and Catholics, by the way. Just take that for what it is. Last night on my bicycle ride, I saw at 7 o'clock at night, it was dark out here. I saw a group of Mexicans still working on a construction site. It had turned dark. They had no lights. They had to finish the pour of the concrete on steps. 6 to 8 of them were there working. I'm not blind, and I'm not deaf, and I'm not dumb. I see what's going on. So in that sense, you can argue that diversity is good for democracy up to a certain point now. Now we have quite another story. 100,000 Syrians. Who are these Syrians? Will they ever assimilate? Do they want to give to America, or do they want to take from America? Are any of them terrorists? Not allowed to ask the question? I'll be right back. I want to go back to exposing for you and disclosing to you who's making money off the surge of illegal aliens and those coming in not only from Central America and Mexico in providing services. We know about the corrupt churches. We know how they've been corrupted under this regime. But then I listed the mutual funds. And if you have a mutual fund, you probably like the percentage you're making every year. But I want you to know which companies are profiting from the illegal alien surge. You may say that you're a conservative and against illegal immigration. Well, here are the mutual funds that hold GEO stock. Are you ready? Vanguard Specialized RET Index Fund, Fidelity Small Cap Discovery Fund, Prudential Jennison Equity Income Fund, Eagle Series Trust Small Cap Growth Fund, Vanguard Small Cap Index Fund, Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. Do you get the picture? I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong, but you have to understand they're profiting from a political decision that you oppose. It's all on page 188 of Government Zero, in case you want to get that list again, because I'm not going to read it again. I'm just getting started. Who is this GEO group, board of directors, that are making billions off the illegal aliens living in luxury resorts? They're not household names. I won't read them to you. One of them is Norman Carlson, former director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Huh, I didn't know that. Let me pause right there, I say. The former director of the U.S. Federal Bureau of Prisons is on GEO's board? Well, think about that for a moment. And as I said, it's all perfectly legal. It's business as usual. Look how well they're doing. There are others. They all came to do good, and they did very well indeed. Again, these are not household names. But wait until you hear the punchline, because you haven't heard it yet. It's on page 189 of the only book you need this year, Government Zero. Are you ready? It's the Koch brothers, however you pronounce it, David and Charles. I used to call it Koch, K-O-C-H, David and Charles, who are two of the richest people in the world, are key funders of the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. There you have it. You thought it was all liberals who wanted amnesty, but conservatives are also guiding forces behind the illegal immigration surge because they own facilities with thousands of unused beds, and they want you to fill them and pay for them. It is big business, big government, and big religion, all in one bundle and getting paid off your back. It is big business, big government, and big religion, all in one bundle, and they're all earning money off your back. All disclosed in the chapter, Zero Immigration and Government Zero. I closed the chapter with the 3 pages on Can We Get America Back? I'm not going to read it to you, but I want to read one line. I'm not against immigration. I'm the child of immigrant parents myself. My mother was an immigrant. My father was an immigrant. Everyone living in this country is descended from immigrants, including the inappropriately named Native Americans. They aren't indigenous to America either. They came here from Asia. They just came before the Europeans. That's something else you probably didn't learn in school. Immigrants did help build this country into the greatest nation on earth. And I believe that every human being has a natural right to leave the country he or she is born in and seek a better life in another. Did you hear what I just said to you? But that right has the same natural limit that all rights have. Jefferson put it so eloquently when he said, the limits drawn around us by the equal rights of others. It means you do not have a right to immigrate to another country carrying a potentially deadly disease that could harm the people living there. You don't have a right to enter the country illegally and subvert its constitution. Most obviously, you don't have a right to immigrate into a country for the express purpose of killing its citizens or overthrowing the government. But yet this is precisely the kind of immigration our government is actively facilitating. I won't read you anymore.